Hello, all my loves. Here we are, the first episode of 2026. In 2025, I had said over and over again to many people in many episodes about staying in our authentic self. Stop people pleasing, follow our soul, do what we feels right, listen to, our inner self and heal our inner self so that we can go on in life in a happy, prosperous, just fulfillment of life because we're following our soul and what we want, not what everyone else around us wants. And so with that said, I need to follow my word. I feel that in 2025, I was really stuck on the abuse and like the narcissistic part of what I do. And honestly, I can't move forward in my healing process if I just keep visiting that one part of my life. So I want to, in this year and going forward, I am still having bottoms up, but I am calling it life unfiltered. And I want to give raw life day to day. I will still obviously talk about my past. My past is part of my story and it obviously has made me where I am today. But I do want to focus on so much more. I mean, I have so much that I have done in my life. I feel like I feel like a cat with 9 lives. Like I've literally lived so much, through so much chaos and confusion and trauma, but also beauty and blessings and just so much that I could share with so many people. And I feel that I was like more being reserved to help just individuals, in that like micro niche of what I've been through in my life. For those that know, who have read my story, Sorry, Satan, the Souls for the Savior, you will even see in there that I have been through so much more than just that little portion of my life. So going forward, like I said, I'm going to have more raw and individual type episodes. I will circle on different things of life, and it'll really be just life unfiltered, from chaotic family to business owning to trauma to, everything. Just stay tuned and follow me. I still am willing to help everyone. That is actually why I will be telling my story. I want to share with you because I feel that since I've been through so much, I could just help so many more people rather than putting myself into one little basket to help just certain individuals. So I hope that you follow along. I hope that you enjoy. And again, if anyone needs help or if there is something specific, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Much love, and let's go for a prosperous 2026. They didn't hurt you because they loved you. You didn't stay because you are weak. Some connections don't feel like love, they feel like survival. If you've ever wondered why walking away felt harder than staying, this episode is for you. Today we're talking about trauma bonds, how they form, how they seem unbreakable, and how you can heal. I get asked about the trauma bond all the time. So I want to take this episode and this opportunity to discuss the trauma bond more in detail for those who are in it, experiencing it, or want to know about it. Maybe you've heard the word before. The definition I want to read first and foremost because there's some keywords in there that are really, really imperative to know. What the trauma bond is, the definition is a strong emotional attachment that forms through repeated cycles of harm and relief, where a person becomes psychologically and biologically bonded to someone who causes them pain. So the words that I want you to focus on is repeated. The reason why I want you to focus on that word is because these are abusive cycles, the highs and the lows, the fight and the flight, the ups and the downs, the love and the abuse that are repetitive. Our minds are the steering wheel to our bodies. How we break habits and do things to become habitual is we do them in repeated consistency. For instance, if you want to go on a diet, you would obviously have to be consistent with going to the gym and obviously consistent with watching what you eat. Same thing with when you became in this trauma bond. There was consistency of abuse, consistency of love, and the highs and the lows were what made you become addicted to the trauma bond. So yes, the trauma bond is an addiction. The other two words that I want to focus on in the definition of trauma bond are psychological and biological. Psychological obviously deals with the mind. Biological obviously deals with the body. So this addiction is something that is mind and body addiction. Now let me explain. When you go through trauma, so when you have someone that's love bombing you, then in turn abusing you, there's different chemicals that are released in your brain. This is why someone that becomes depressed, someone that becomes anxious, someone that has psychological issues, maybe like bipolar or schizophrenia, like just anything in those natures, they need medication to offset those chemicals and those levels in their brain. So that is exactly why you are an addict to the trauma, because the chemicals in your brain from the abuse and from the love are so high when they get released. Your mind is almost like confused and making a habitual way of life from the abuse and from the love. So you're looking for every day a high and a low. This is why when you leave the abuser, you actually crave them back and you end up going back to them because your mind is telling you something's not right. Like, where's the abuse now? Like, I feel out of whack. Like, give me that back. Same thing like if you were like trying to break a sugar habit, like your body's like, give me that sugar. Hello. Like, I feel I'm really tired. I'm lagging this. Like, I really, really need that sugar. And so you have to fight the consistency of not eating sugar. It's the same thing with the trauma bond. You are an addict to the trauma, so therefore you have to break that addiction. How do you do this? A couple things. First and foremost, you have to remove yourself from the environments. You can't be in an environment that makes you sick. You have to go no contact. And what no contact means is literally removing them from your social media, removing them from your phone, removing them from email, removing them from any specific way that you can get and they can get in contact with you. This also goes for any individuals that talk to them. So like there's a word that's called flying monkeys, and it's from the Wizard of Oz. And basically these flying monkeys are people that know the both of you, and they've actually abused them as well. So they've already set up like a smear campaign about you, saying you're the crazy one, you're the abuser, you're the whatever it is that they made up, whatever story. So now when things go south and when you actually go no contact, that person who's going to go report stuff to him, they're going to think that like you're the cheater, you're the liar, you're the this. So they're going to go and they're going to feel open to sharing information when, on your social media, you're out with your girlfriends or you're out with your guy friends or whatever. So those type of people you need to get rid of too, because they just will go report back to the abuser, and then the abuser will have different tactics and manipulation ways to manipulate you even more. They'll go show up at the places that you go to, because obviously they can't get in contact with you if you go no contact, but magically they'll know you're at this bar or this restaurant or whatever. So that's why you have to get rid of even people that associate with the abuser. And realistically, if anyone is going to associate with the abuser behind your back, or even with you knowing, you don't want to talk to them anyway. You're literally telling them that you're being abused, and the person is going to go talk to your abuser. So just let that sink in. Like, they're not your friend. They're not a family member, a true family member, clearly, if they're entertaining the abuser. And yes, all narcissistic individuals and anyone that is in a trauma bond that is an abusive, it's mental abuse, psychological abuse. Abuse is not just physical. So I want to lay that out there. Next, when does this occur? When does a trauma bond occur? It occurs during abuse. It occurs during neglect. It occurs during mistreatment. It occurs during basically any time that there's affection, validation, or apologies, creating a powerful dependency that feels like love, but it's actually rooted in survival or conditioning. Now, let me explain something to you. You didn't become this addict overnight, okay? So obviously, like, they worked it into you. They started with the love bombing, then it turned into the abuse. But the truth is, this trauma and this survival is something that you have known your whole life and have actually entertained your entire life. So chances are you come from either abandonment, abuse, psychological abuse, mental abuse, you've had some sort of trauma in your childhood, and you were grown to know what love is not and not what love is. Let me explain. If you knew love as a survival, maybe there was always struggling, maybe it was, like I said, abuse and you had to always survive. Abandonment, maybe a father, a mother, or whoever, a caregiver had abandoned you, so then you obviously had to know survival, and you always feared that someone would leave you because you didn't have that loving connection. So any of those, you basically were taught what love is not and not what love is. And you also obviously learned love as conditioned. So maybe you always felt like you had to give in order to be loved, like instead of love being unconditional. So you have to pull out the root of the problem first, which is going back to your childhood and seeing where it was that you learned survival, conditions, again, where you weren't good enough, where you weren't valued. All of those things are what made you even entertain this individual and being in this trauma bond now, and even entertaining those types of individuals, because you are basically finding and seeking what love is not and not what love is. Myself, I always knew love as sacrifice. I always knew love as conditional. So I always felt like I wanted to overly love somebody to make them love me, where you don't have to do that. It's a joint commitment. It's not a conditional commitment. So learning that and healing that root is going to help you in the long term find a true, unconditional love and person that loves you for you and who you are, all of you, all your imperfections, they will love perfectly. Okay. So then what is the level? What is the mind thing and all that I was explaining? So now when you leave the abuser, you're going to go through a withdrawal. Just like a drug addict goes through a withdrawal when they don't have their drugs. So you are going to feel very tired. You are going to feel very weak. You are going to cry. You're going to have depressive episodes. You're going to want to go back. You are going to have spiraling, episodes. I highly, 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 highly suggest that you go see a psychiatrist, because it is a mental level chemical imbalance in your brain that you really can't fix on your own. When you are going through abuse, there is high levels of cortisol and adrenaline that is going through your brain because it's on alert. It's trying to survive. It's trying to fight back. It's trying to, think of whatever explanation that you have to give because you're getting blamed for whatever. Those are high levels of chemicals that are not on the normal scale of a normal person who doesn't go through abuse, that are being basically going through your body, through your mind, and everything. Cortisol causes inflammation. So a lot of times individuals that come out of abusive situations, they have autoimmune disorders when they get blood drawn, because cortisol is inflammational. Then on the flip side, when they're love bombing you and they're actually acting normal and everything's going back to your cloud nine for a little bit so they could reel you back in and breadcrumb you in, that's where then the dopamine, the oxytocin, and the serotonin are being released in your brain. And those are the feel-good chemicals. But when you have the high and the low, the fight and the flight, these are getting every day, every other day, whatever, being released in your brain. So it's causing that addiction. And now your body doesn't know how to survive or how to react or even go day to day without having these high chemicals being released from your brain. So that is why when you're out of the abuse, your body is craving it back, because now you're on the low. It's almost like you're in a depressive state and you're needing that high to release, that cortisol to release, so that your body is like, okay, I'm back to normal again. So I highly suggest that you go see a psychiatrist and get medication to offset that, because that will help you in the long run. And then there is things like a lot of individuals will go to the gym, because obviously that will bring your adrenaline up, and that will get your heart pumping and stuff like that. The dopamine side, they'll go give back. They'll go do volunteer work, things like that, things that help other people, that releases dopamine. So depending on obviously what your levels are and all that kind of stuff, there are things outside of, that are healthy things for you to do to help those levels as well. But at the end of the day, the only way that you could get over them is breaking this addiction first, breaking the trauma bond. Then you could start your healing process. You cannot go straight into healing until you're out of the trauma bond, because what you are doing is you'll just keep going back. Once you start going to the healing, you'll go feed your addiction again. So you have to make sure that you go and break that addiction first, then go to the root of the problem and start your healing. I hope this helped you. And like I said, how you have to basically break this is you have to do the trauma bond in reverse. So you have to do repeated cycles of staying away, feeding the dopamine and the adrenaline, the cortisol. Like, you have to stay, just like when you break a habit of overeating, you got to stay consistent with your diet and stay consistent in the gym. And that's the same thing here. You have to stay consistent with no contact and stay consistent with feeding your brain the opposite of whatever you're feeling. So if you're feeling depressed, go to the gym, start working out. If you're feeling, that you're spiraling and you're having, a hard time, do something to give back. Do something that feeds the love side. Go with family members or friends that, make you happy and bring out that, go do something fun, go bowling or whatever kind of hobbies. Find, things that make you happy so that you could offset that chemical level in your brain. I hope this helped, and I promise, once you break the trauma bond is the hardest part, and once you break that, you will be golden from that point on. But it's breaking an addiction. It's not easy. I will say that.
Breaking and healing from a trauma bond doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments, when you pause instead of react, when you choose yourself without explanation, and when you rest instead of fighting to survive. Joining today and listening is the beginning of process. Keep going, because change happens when you make changes. If this episode resonated with you, please comment, like, and share. Share this message with anyone else that you may know that can benefit from it as well. Don't forget how amazing you are. Thank you for listening to Bottoms Up, Life Unfiltered. Much love, and see you soon.